Okay, I think it started. So can I welcome you to the Cabinet on Monday, the 19th of July. It's 2 o'clock. So we will start our remote meeting as usual. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed. We'll let Ian in, shall we? Yes. Hello, Ian. May I remind everybody that that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded by the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. The next item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I see that there are no absentees. Next item is the minutes of the Cabinet of the 5th of July. Can I ask that they're accepted as a true record, please? Is that seconded?
Yes, I'll formally second, Leader.
Thank you very much. And there's no items that are incorrect. Okay, next item is to receive declarations of interest, which I normally forget about, and I don't think we have any. No. Okay, in that case, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is report meeting, corporate parenting panel, 17th of May 2021. And I know that Ben chaired that particular panel, so I don't know if you want to introduce it.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, just the minutes from our meeting on the 17th of May. We had a very interesting presentation discussion about all the work that's been done regarding domestic violence issues and how COVID's had an impact, and obviously from the corporate parenting panel perspective, how that's had an effect on those who fall under our care. We continue to monitor the reduction expectations for children looked after, which is obviously proving very challenging at this time. But yeah, a really useful meeting. I think the members got a lot out of it, and of course we bring those minutes here so that Cabinet and therefore the wider council and public can be informed of the work we're doing in our role as corporate parents. So I'll move those, please.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no other items, another comments, I'll second that. So we agree that? Yes, thank you. Next item is a report of myself. It's the annual Treasury Management Report for 2021. The purpose of the report before you is to outline the Council's Treasury management operations for the period April 20 to the 31st of March 2021. The report does outline the significant financial impact that the pandemic has had in the UK and across the world. So we're not on our own. The pandemic has had a substantial impact on interest rate forecasts, which are detailed in paragraph 1.7 of the report. And as a result, the investment returns during the past year have been low. Cash flows forecasting has also been problematic during the year, as the council incurred additional costs in order to provide the services needed by individuals and businesses during the pandemic. This year has not been an easy year. The council's primary objectives for the management of its investments are to give priority to the security and liquidity of its funds before seeking the best rates of return. So prior to 2021, the council had placed investments with other local authorities and indeed management account deposit facilities, which is guaranteed by the British government. However, during the year, the yield of this facility was negative. Therefore, we would be investing money and actually losing money. Therefore, 2 money market accounts were opened together with 2 high earning accounts with Lloyds Bank to improve the returns on the investments made. In 2021, the council continued to finance a significant proportion of its capital expenditure from internal resources, therefore saving us any extra loads. And as a result, the council's external borrowing was well within the authority's limit and operational boundaries set for 2020-21, and therefore limited the debt charges that were paid during the year. Insofar as the council's treasury management operations entered into in 2021 are concerned, all treasury management activities undertaken during the financial year complied with the amended provisions, the amended approved strategy of the SIPFA Code of Practice and the relevant legislation provisions, which I would expect nothing less of. I'm not going to go in any further. I'm just going to move the recommendations that the Cabinet accept the annual report of the Treasury Management 2021 and the report be referred to Council for approval. So we will be dealing with this at Council next week if we approve it today. So can I formally move and ask that if anybody's got any questions or any comments, this is time to do it, or if anybody wants to second it, please.
And I'll formally second, Leader.
Okay. There's no other comments? No? Okay, in that case, I'll go on to agenda item 6, which is a bit of a housekeeping report in some respects. It's the budget strategy for 22-23. So the report outlines the strategy together with the proposed budget process and the timetable for 22-23. As normal and as part of the final revenue budget for 2021, the level of required savings projected for 22-23 and 23-24 totaled £9.9 million. So we already know that we projected in savings of that much. This level of saving will, however, need to be reviewed as part of the next medium-term financial plan, which will be coming to us in November. The report also outlines some assumptions made to date with regard to the level of revenue and capital funding available for the coming financial year, and outlines how the service should approach their initial estimates. The proposed timetable for 2023 budget is: the Cabinet will make its initial findings and capital budget proposals in November 2021. Each scrutiny committee will be consulted on the relevant initial proposals for the Cabinet, of the initial proposals of the Cabinet in December 2021. So each scrutiny will look at that. Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee will act as the lead. The Budget Working Group will submit its recommendations to Cabinet by February 2022, and the Cabinet will formulate its final proposals and submit them in the meeting to a full Council meeting in March 2022. At this stage, it's anticipated the Welsh Government timeline for announcing the further funds to local government will be later than the normal timeframe. So we're back where we were where we have been for the last couple of years. However, in order to ensure full scrutiny and to meet the deadlines, the proposed timetables for the 22-23 budget is for the Cabinet to make its initial revenue and capital budget proposals in November 2021. If you look at the page on page 2, it gives you a table, an indicative timetable. I will give advance notice that the Cabinet consider the initial budget proposals. It says the 29th of November. I think it could possibly be as early as the 22nd, but that will come to fruition as and when. The Cabinet. So what I'm recommending is the Cabinet approves the budget strategy for 22-23, including the requirement for directors to prepare initial revenue budget in accordance with the timetable agreed by the Head of Finance, that the directors be requested to continue to progress the reshaping programme. The Cabinet approves the timetable for 22-23, the budget process, subject to any amendments being required to meet the statutory deadlines as a result of changing the timing of Welsh Government settlement announcements. So we are still slightly in the dark as to where we will be, but it's no different than we've been in several other years. So basically, it's the timetable to go forward. So I'm going to formally move that. That's okay with you.
And I'll formally second, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? No, we'll wait and see what comes. The next item is quite an extensive document, and I will try to keep as brief as I can. It's the annual delivery plan report for Q4 performance 2021, 20 to 2021. So the performance, it shows our progress up until the 31st of March. From April, and it's our aims to achieve the annual delivery plan commitments as aligned to the corporate wellbeing objectives. The appended presentations, which are contained in the substantial Appendix A, are intended to provide Cabinet with an overview of the end of year performance, and that will be the case for other years too. This is ahead of a more detailed annual report for 2021, and that will come to the September Cabinet and full Council prior to publication in October 2021, as is normal the case. Despite COVID-19, we have made some positive progress in delivering our in-year commitments, which has in essence given us an amber status of amber. which is not surprising considering the fact that we're in the middle of the pandemic and still kind of there. I'm glad to say that all 4 corporate wellbeing objectives were also amber. But that also reflects some of the progress made to date, because even though we've been in unprecedented times, there has been positive areas. 60% of the planned activities have been attributed a green performance, which is outstanding. Therefore, 40% of these activities were attributed a red status. Of the 93 actions were red. 93 actions were attributed as red performance at the end of the year, 85 of which were directly as a result of reprioritization because of the COVID effects. Work has commenced to recover as part of that, and that's why we're currently in an amber position, and that's been reported to members on a regular basis, either to Scrutiny Cabinet or full council. So there are other things that we have to look at, which are our performance measures, and we have 149 of them. And they were aligned to the corporate plan wellbeing objectives. There was reports for 64 of them. 42 measures were attributed green, again, very good, and 6 were amber and 20 were red. Performance status was not applicable for 90 of them because we're establishing baseline markers. In relation to the 20 which are attributed red, which are the ones that we probably would look at as the exceptions, that has continued to miss the target simply because of COVID. So what basically this report does is seeks consideration of the proposed report, what we've done, what we haven't done, the proposed remedial actions to address those underperformances. Normally it would go to committee meetings in July. It's not been possible because the views of the committee are within this report. But if there are any comments to the report, they will be reported back to Cabinet for further discussion. Basically, the Cabinet is asked to look at the overall performance of the year, which is in an extensive appendix at Appendix A, which goes to something like 110 pages. So what I'm asking is the recommendations is the Cabinet considers the performance results and progress towards achieving the annual plan, commitments as aligned to our corporate plan, wellbeing and objectives as outlined in the report, that having us consider them, the Cabinet approves the remedial actions to be taken to address the underperformance and to tackle the key issues and challenges identified, informed by the views and the recommendations of the Scrutiny Committee, which are some of which are tabled within this report. And the Cabinet notes the progress being made through our recovery strategy in response to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. As I said, it's been a difficult year. We have an overall status of amber. We still have some greens, but clearly there are some reds which are due to the pandemic, but they're trying to be caught up at the moment. I don't know if anybody's got any comments to make in their own particular area. If they do, please speak now. Otherwise, I will be moving the recommendations that I just did. No comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, Liz?
Yes, Leader. Apart from obviously being delighted to be able to second this report, you mentioned the level of detail that's in Appendix A, and we'd be here all afternoon if we went through all the information there. And it's easy to dwell on the things that we still want to be working on, but in terms of achievements, I said we could be here for ages. But just for one area that in terms of digital connectivity, just to give an example of what's been achieved over the last year, there was work going on to help our care homes to become connected so people could have communication with their families. There was a lot of work that went on with children to allow them to access online learning. 9,500 devices have been distributed to children in the Vale, so that all those that require connection of some form has been there. We've also had the little MiFi units that have been distributed to some. That's just a very, very small sort of micro level look at some of the stuff that's been achieved. So it's very worthwhile reading this very readable, very accessible document if anyone wants an idea of the types of things that have been achieved this year. And huge thanks from me to our officers for delivering it.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that you have to remember is that there's a recovery report on terms of the pandemic has been to all scrutiny committees, so they've all had an opportunity of seeing where they are. But the other thing is, whenever they're reported, they always look by the exceptions, so the reds in particular, to see where we are and the reasons why, and any remedial action we can take in the meantime to actually try and address them. But Eddie, you want to come in, please?
Yeah, thanks. I think both of you, Liz, have just sort of emphasised it really. There is a lot going on, isn't it? And it's only when you get down into the detail of that report, particularly areas like the coronavirus updates, you know, we're in a pandemic still. And yes, yeah, the services have still been providing and they had to deliver in different ways as well. So although it is easy to focus on the reds, and there are more greens and ambers, which I think are a credit to everybody that's working in those, and also recognising that it's from the officers, but the scrutinies also provides some challenge to what we do. So we haven't taken this on lightly.
Okay, good, fair enough. I think you have to look at the exceptions, that's fair enough, but I think there's justification, well enough justification, to be honest, this year. Okay, well, I moved the recommendations, and if there are anything coming forward, then we'll hear from scrutiny, and we'll obviously look at it ourselves in our own particular departmental areas. So with that, you agree, you approve that? Yes? Good, thank you very much. The next item is the Vale Morgan Public Service Board Annual Report. And again, this is an extensive document, which is actually this time online differently and in the form of a sway report. So there's lots of nice pictures and things in there. But the PSB has launched this wellbeing plans, and the partners have been working to progress the wellbeing objectives in the plan, and they've considered all the actions aligned to those objectives themselves. To capture the progress made, the PSB have produced, as I said, the annual report this year in the form of a Microsoft Sway report, and it does give an overview of the progress that has been made by partners in implementing the priority work streams. Many of the activities are detailed and have been developed or adopted and adapted, I should say, in response to COVID-19. So things have changed, but things have still progressed. And the annual report, as I said, was considered by the PSB on the 2nd of July, and there's a hyperlink in the report to that because clearly it's on their PSB website. There's also been a considerable amount of work with the town and community councils to discuss how they can strengthen their relationships together. And I thank the Vice Chair for holding those meetings, because I think it was important that we kind of step back as a council, and it was the PSB who were important. So it wasn't as if it was the council talking, it was the PSB, which is a partner organisation. And I would remind you that the PSB has 4 wellbeing objectives, and they are to enable people to get involved, participate in local communities and shape local services, to reduce poverty and tackling inequalities linked to deprivation, to give children the best start in life, and to protect and enhance and value our environment. As I said, the 4 priorities, each of the PSBs have work streams too. One was the Cardiff and Vale Move More Eat Well plan, led by Cardiff and Vale University Health Board. There's another one, we're tackling climate, led by ourselves and Natural Resources Wales. Another one was a Pathfinder project, talking about time banking. That was led again by the Vale Glamorgan. And there was an organisational learning project, and that was improving engagement, led by South Wales Fire and Rescue. Within the report are all details of each of the work streams, and indeed a number of case studies are involved in there. It's been interesting to see the Older People's Commission has been involved too, and they've come and talk to the PSB in April, and they've agreed to work together to apply the World Health Organization to be an age-friendly veil. As I said, we talked to the town and community councils. They did come up with some criticism, I guess is the right word. They felt that they felt a bit disconnected from the PSB. They said there was they thought there was a lack of communication. They were a bit frustrated and they wanted to be more involved, which is good. So there is a willingness to have regular meetings with the PSB. And again, we will think we will chair it by the vice chair of the PSB, because he is one of our partners from the police, Mark Brace. And I thank him for the work he's done in terms of that. And as I said, the report shows that we made good progress in delivering those priorities so far. So we have recommendations. And one is the Cabinet reviews the Public Service Board's Public Service Board's annual report and the progress partners are making in implementing the priorities set out by the Wellbeing Plan, which I've tried to go through quite quickly. That we note the outcome of the recent discussions between PSB partners and representatives of the town and community councils, and the proposed way forward to ensure there's a stronger working relationship between the PSB and the town and community councils. That we also consider the views of the Community Liaison Committee, who considered the annual report on the 5th of July, which was again generally supportive of the way forward. And again, that was part of the liaison with town and community councils, clearly. We also asked to consider how the council services can continue to contribute to the successful delivery of the PSB deliveries. Well, I have to say that Tom's team actually do a tremendous job in working and being the conduit for the PSB. And in fact, I know they're the ones who actually put together the SWAY report. And I would advise anybody to go and have a look at it, because it is an interesting read. Fifth, that the Cabinet make any recommendations to the PSB regarding the progress to date and the future focus of the PSB activities in delivering the Wellbeing Plan. Again, we could add a comment in there to thank them for the amount of work they've done, and I think that would be appropriate for us to add our thanks to the PSB partners, and not just the statutory partners, but all the other partners who come together on a voluntary basis. So they don't have to be there by law, but they are there and they all work in tandem with one another. And I think good progress is actually being made. As I said, talk to the older people. I know they talk to the youth as well. And in order for this to go forward, so we can promote the activity of the PSB, the Cabinet refers the report to Scrutiny Corporate Performance and Resources for their consideration. I don't know if everybody's got any comments to make in relation to this, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I would recommend looking at it through the PSB website. So Liz, sorry.
Thanks, Leader. I've actually been involved in sort of one tranche of this work, which is joined up to the Move More Eat Well project, and that's Food Vale. And there's been some absolutely super work going on. I think Councillor Williams, Eddie, has also been involved in the one project in Llantwit Major, and there's another one forming in Penarth at the moment. And what it's actually meant is that it's so much easier to get the right people around the table and to move these projects forward, that we have a collective understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And so if you need people from the University Health Board, or you need people from the police or whatever into a project around the table, it's much more easy to get that. So I'm delighted to second this report.
Good, thank you. One thing I failed to make a comment on is that I know the town and community councils asked to comment whether or not they could be members of the scrutiny committees, but I think that to be honest, is covered on the basis if anybody wants to turn up to a scrutiny committee, they can do so on a case by case basis. So I think that's good. We also have the community liaison committee, which if they want to expand it, I'm happy for that too. But the other thing was, in order for them to still have this better connectivity with the PSB, it's been agreed that they will hold several meetings a year with PSB and representatives from the town and community councils, and if they want to do it on a theme basis, that's something that can go forward as well. But the more that we can encourage those within our community, whether elected or otherwise, to go forward and enhance the priorities and the work streams of the PSP, the better. But as I said, I moved the recommendations. Thank you for that, Liz, too. And any other comments from anybody else? If not, I will move it on. Thank you very much indeed. The next item is another really serious report, and there are lots of considerations here, but I know it will be going to council. So this is to advise the Cabinet of the Welsh Government and the WLGA Council Diversity and Democracy Agenda. It's also asking us to seek our endorsement to make a diverse council declaration by the end of July 2021, in keeping with the WLGA Council recommendations. And for that to take place, we will be referring it to council for approval. We will also be using the 1414 urgency procedure in order to do that, because council is next week. As you probably know, the Welsh Government is focused heavily on diversity agenda and in addressing that through the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021. WLGA carried out a considerable amount of work strengthening the impetus for diversity actions to be considered and implemented for the local government elections 2022 and beyond. The WLGA Council subsequently agreed that the following to ensure that councils are more representative in their communities following the next local government elections, and they are to encourage political parties to commit to proactive and coordinated activities to improve diversity in local government democracy. Clearly, that does affect those who are independent, because they can't do that only through a group. A formal position calling for the introduction of resettlement grants for all councillors and senior salary holders, which I guess was debated somewhat, to encourage all councillors to claim any necessary allowances and expenses. And I think the reason for that was the fact that people say, well, if you're doing the job, you should be claiming what you're entitled to, and therefore, if you are on a low wage or a low income, then you shouldn't be shouldn't have any problems and not feel it not right to claim what is rightfully yours. To encourage a declaration by July 2021 from councils in Wales on being a diverse council, which we will do, and there's listed the elements of it in the recommendation in the executive summary, and to seek the approval of a declaration by the end of July, which we're doing, and to establish, and this is important, I think, the Diversity of Democracy Working Group of the Democratic Services Committee to progress the WLGA Council recommendations and any other actions identified, and also to complement the work of the Welsh Government proposed Race Equality Action Plan for an anti-racist Wales and associated goals for local government, which, if you recall, we recently agreed and sent in our recommendations to Welsh Government's consultation process. I don't think I'll say any more, because it's attached to the report is lots of things, like, for example, the work from the WLGA. There's the extracts from the Women's Equality Network, etc. So the recommendations is that the Cabinet be requested to endorse the making of the following Vale of Glamorgan Diverse Council Declaration and refer the same to Council for ratification. That the Vale of Glamorgan Council will provide a clear public commitment to improve diversity, demonstrate an open and welcoming culture to all, consider staggering council meetings times and agree in recess periods to support councillors who have other commitments, and set out an action plan for the activity ahead of 2022 local government elections. That we note the outlined actions within the WLGA report, that the Cabinet and Council was recommending approve the establishment of the terms of reference of the Diversity in Democracy Working Group of the Democratic Services Committee to promote the diversity agenda within the Council, that the working group be established based on a membership of 5, 1 member from each of the political groups which are represented on the Democratic Services Committee. So in other words, looking at the similar setup, The group leaders be requested to nominate their group representative to sit on a working group where they have more than one group member on the Democratic Services Committee. That Cabinet, as part of supporting the Council to develop an inclusive culture and one is respectful of gender identity across the spectrum, endorse the principles of amending the Council's constitution to reflect the use of gender-neutral terminology and refer the same to the Council for approval. In other words, things like change chairman to chair, etc. And that the Cabinet approves the use of the urgent decision procedure as set out in section 1440 of the Council's constitution in order to refer the matter to Council before the calling period ends. In other words, you'll go to Council on next Monday. I'm sure there'll be some consideration at Council. I will say no more. I don't know if anybody's got any comments to make. Can I formally move the recommendations? Eddie, I'll bring Eddie in first for a change, and then Catherine, and then I'll bring Liz in.
Sorry, it was Catherine first, and then Liz probably.
Oh, all right. Oh, in that case,
no, let Catherine go first.
In that case, Catherine's first.
Oh, thank you, Eddie. That's very polite of you. I just wanted to say I'm happy to second this report because, as anyone knows, I'm hugely supportive of having a more diverse council. Everyone who lives in our local community should be able to feel like they can stand to represent the people that they live amongst. And that was a big motivation for when I stood for council. So I'm really supportive of increasing diversity in our council. And for us as a council to be able to support all of those people is, we all know it's one thing to stand for a political party. It's something else when you're an independent. And it's really reassuring to know that we're actually going to put some markers in the ground to say, no, we are going to start to support people to be able to get involved a lot more. We all know that there is a stereotype of what a councillor looks like. And it's high time that we change what that stereotype is and for that just to go away, because we all are interested, we're all involved. And I think it's really, really positive move forward. So yes, happy to second, Leader. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Eddie.
Okay, I'll take on from there then. Yes, the initiatives that are in this report are clear. There's a set direction. You can see it's going from the council. There's a statement that we're going to go forward, and there's you've identified the group leaders to provide representatives. And it's interesting, even some of the discussions I've had in the last few weeks, there are still individuals that have biases, prejudices, even to the point where I was asked, well, what representation of other minorities or diversity do we need from our area? And I think part of the problem is that we don't have that representation because people don't feel comfortable in being in our area. Now, that's not across the whole of the Vale, but there are certain pockets, and certainly it's where this sort of action plan will address. And it's our education. We're not expecting to be overrun in certain ways. It's just acknowledge people for who they are, and it's not until you understand from the person who's been subject to discrimination or whatever, you realise that lifelong impact that can have. So I fully support this and hope that we move forward and be in a better place for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Liz.
Thank you, Leader. I had a really interesting conversation with our pupil voice network, which is the school councils, Friday before last, and spent a morning with them virtually, talking about a whole range of things. But one of the things that we did discuss was diversity in representation, and it became hugely important, when we were talking, that the people that represent them, they have to feel that there are people that look like them, that they feel they can identify with. And this is not just for young people, this is for the whole population. We had discussions about the fact that every decision we make, and that's out of council as well as in council, is probably political. Not party political, but political. Do we put more money into building new schools than potholes? I know, I can see Peter frowning. Where are all those decisions? do we want to be spending 165 million on a school building programme? Is that the right choice for us going forward? I've been really fortunate that the two administrations I've been involved in have both been gender balanced, and it makes a difference to the decisions being made. But I think back not that long to a bit of a loss to this council, the cabinet member who was then Children's Services, that started with delivering Penarth Learning Community, that £50 million project, then Lantwick Learning Community, was 25 years old when he took on that cabinet portfolio, and he did a stunning job. You know, we have to recognise the skills of everyone, and make sure that there are no barriers to people being able to stand up and represent their communities. And I think it's something that we all feel hugely passionate about. And you know, I really look forward to doing some serious work on this, and hopefully getting an even more diverse council, administration, everything else.
Good.
Thank you, Leader.
Well, I think you're right, and to refer to Chris, the 25-year-old as he was then, I had a great deal of confidence in Chris. I'd known him for a long time, knew his capabilities, and I know we worked as a team, as we always do, and that's one of the important things too, is you have to work as a team, and you know, the differences we've made to the education setup and environment within the Vale Glamorgan is outstanding. You're right, it did start with Chris, so I thank him too. But I thank everyone else because we've kept it going, and we intend to keep it going. That's the main thing. No one's going to be left behind, as they say. Okay, good. Thank you very much. We've agreed those recommendations. The next item, excuse me, is the renewal of the Vale Glamorgan Broadcasting Community Interest Company deed of grant. Not everybody is Bro Radio. We've supported the local community Bro radio station since its foundation in 2009. This seeks to extend the contract again for another 3 years. In addition, let's be fair, the council has established communication channels, and particularly they've been important during this unstable time of COVID-19, and indeed the media landscape has changed no end. It's an award-winning local station. It has established itself as a vital source of reliable news for information for those in the Vale Glamorgan. They broadcast out of Barry. They're now broadcasting out to Lantwick. They've extended their range. They have an online facility, so people can pick them up if they can't quite pick them up on the range of the broadcast. And basically, to be fair, the station does seek to promote a feeling of social identity and community pride amongst the urban, rural, and coastal communities within our county. And they have helped, particularly in terms of the pandemic, in putting the messages out there. And in fairness, they've helped us promote our services, but they also are there as a mouthpiece for the general public, and that's good too. And I know that many of you, or many of us, have been on their broadcasts and are happy to do so. And I know that they do a lot with the young people, but more particularly, the employment range is incredible too. I can't praise them strong enough, to be honest. I think they do a great job. And what I'm simply going to do is remove the recommendations. If anybody else wants to talk about them, that's fine. But it's recommended to the Cabinet notes the report, contents of the report. It's recommended the Cabinet approves the renewal of a deed of grant between the Council and the Vale Glamorgan Broadcasting Company Interest, the Vale Glamorgan Broadcasting Community Interest Company, for a further 3 years period from the 1st of August 2021 to the 31st of July 2024. It's recommended that the Cabinet delegates authority to the Monitoring Officer, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, in consultation with the Executive Leader and Head of Finance, Section 1 Finance Officer, to prepare, execute the deeds of grant and related payment processes. And it's recommending the Cabinet receives an annual update on the work of Bro Radio over the term of the funding, as we have done each year since 2009, as far as I remember. If there was 1 year missing, maybe there was, but I don't think there was. So I'm going to formally move the recommendations. Liz.
Thanks, Leader, and absolutely delighted to formally second this. And I think, as you said, that this is such a valuable information channel, particularly at times of emergency. It's things like school closures, snow, flooding, that sort of thing. But even during, not even during the pandemic, they immediately switched to themselves working from home, and they maintained the service, maintained a local service. As you said, the fact that we support them doesn't mean that they are our communication channel. They are fiercely independent and will cover stories from whatever angle, and I think that's to be valued. But I think the other thing that I particularly would like to mention is the skill development, the broadcasting skill development, because it's virtually exclusively, I think maybe one and a bit people that are actually employed, but in terms of skills of their volunteers, because they're volunteers, doesn't mean that their skills are any less. And I well remember being involved in a documentary that one of their journalist, Dan Moffat, did on Gavin and Stacey, which turned out to be award-winning. And since finishing in university, he's gone on to great things. And, you know, similar now, is it provides such an opportunity for young people to build, hone those skills, and to build their confidence. Also, a great number of people with disabilities, which they are again able to build their confidence. I think it's a superb community radio station, as witnessed by the number of awards they've won over the years, and I would have no hesitation in either seconding or fully supporting these recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much. I agree. If nobody else got any comments, we will move on to another topic where people have made great work, and we're been asked to grant award a licence extension to Cowbridge Charter Trust 21-22 to 23-24. And basically this is asking us to award £1,128 per annum from the corporate grants budget policy in 21-22, 22-23 and 23-24, and to award the licence to the Charter Trust until 31st of March 2024. And this is another organisation that's done absolutely tremendous amount of work, to be fair. You know, for example, and it says in the report that when the partial collapse of the town wall in 2008, we give them a grant, and they administer the work to return the town wall to a safe and attractive condition, and then provide some car parking as well. Since then, they've been given money to ensure ongoing repairs and maintenance of the Grade 2 listed town walls, but I also know they're interested in the Old Hall, doing work in the Old Hall. And then the other thing is, of course, they are actually asking for an increase this year, but quite rightly so in some respects, because one of the things that we've done lately is taken away the old cattle sheds from the cattle market, which has exposed the town hall wall again, which was never exposed before. So there's more work to be done there. The other thing is, of course, the amount of work that they do offers good value for money to the council. And we make sure that everything is safe and clean and tidy, and therefore what we're asking for is an extension to the contract that they've been doing so well for the last several years. So I have no hesitation in moving the recommendation that the grant be awarded to Cowbridge Charter Trust Charitable Incorporated Organisation, CIO, of £1,128 per annum for 21-22, 22-23 and 23-24, and a corresponding licence be made for the period, that the monitoring officer, head of legal democratic services, be granted delegated authority to agree the terms and execute the licence between the Vale Glamorgan Council and the Cowbridge Charter Trust in line with the recommendations above. Whether or not that needs to be in consultation with myself or not, I don't know. If it does, we can add it. If it isn't, we don't have to add it. because it doesn't say that in the recommendation listed before us, but we can sort that out later. So can I move those recommendations with the added ones if necessary? If not, they don't need to be there, but I'm not absolutely sure. It's normal procedure, we do it, but I'm chilled either way. Any other comments from anybody?
Debbie's just got her hand up, Leader.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, if we could add that into the recommendation, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I just spotted it when I was reading it. I'd read it before and it never kicked in. Okay, good. Ben.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I wish to formally second. I think what they do, the value, and how great the town wall and other aspects of Cowbridge are looking because of it is brilliant. And making this decision now on the extension allows them to kick into gear and get things moving over the summer, which I know they want to do. And I think the town walls are looking really good. The 25% more of them exposed. It's mentioned in the report you referred to. I think it adds to the environment and what people like to see when they're walking around Cowbridge, and makes it the pleasant place to go to. So yeah, happy to formally second. Good,
thank you very much. Some good work, and as I say, it's extra parking as a result too, since the changes recently. Okay, the next item from me is the enforced sale policy. This is to present a proposed enforced sale policy and equality impact assessment for consideration and to make recommendations to move forward. I'm gonna read some of the stuff out of the executive summary because it's important for people to realise what it is. This presents a proposal of the enforced sale policy, which is in Appendix 1 of the report, and it also has an equality impact assessment at Appendix 2. It recommends delegated powers to finalise the enforced sale policy, which is within the recommendations, and to authorise the use of enforced sales procedure, which is in recommendations 3 and 4, subject to the views of the Corporate Performance Resources Scrutiny Committee and the Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee, which is in recommendation 5. So we're proposing it, but to go to the scrutiny committees. If you recall, we already engage in the Welsh Government's empty property management strategy programme, which only relates to homes. And this proposed enforced sale policy is a result of that particular work stream. It is somewhat different. We have long-term problematic empty properties, and that can have a negative impact. Some cause nuisance to occupiers. They can also lead to vandalism, fly tipping, potential squatting, and antisocial behaviour in general. So the proposed enforced sale policy is a mechanism by which problematic, and this is the interesting thing, long-term empty private sector dwellings, derelict commercial properties, so we're extending it to that, and land is also extended, are brought back into beneficial use. And the crucial bit is where council debts have been registered against the property but not discharged. In other words, we have properties which are neglected through one reason or another. There's a charge on the property, and it's one way of us getting our money back in terms of that. So the enforced sale procedure is used as a means of last resort, and it would be a last resort where owners have abandoned the empty property, or it's not clear who even owns it, because sometimes we have properties or land in particular, particularly in areas of Barry where we have no registered landowner. So, as I said, it's used as a last resort. The enforced policy is a means of recovering our debt, but also bringing about the change of the ownership. But also, it's a new owner is more likely, let's be honest, to be more able and willing to invest in the property, and showing its occupation or its maintaining its upkeep in order to bring it the property back into use. But there's also another proviso, and as each case will be assessed individually and be subject to financial liabilities. So clearly, it's an area where we can use as much as we can. Each one will be looked at on their merits. But there are some interesting points in terms of this, because this came about from the National Assembly in 2019, which undertook the inquiry into the empty properties, and as a result, that's when we entered the empty home strategy. This is, as I said, an extension. The interesting point is at 2.7. that for the property to be considered suitable for enforced sale, all of the following criteria must be met. So the total debt owed by the council must be exceeding £500. The debt must not be statute barred. The debt must be more than 2 months old to give your property owner adequate time to redeem it. The property must be vacant with no prospect of it becoming occupied in the next 6 months. The owner, if they can be traced, must have demonstrated non-compliance with legislation in relation to the property. For example, if they're not responding to anything that we sent to them, and no positive acceptable response has been received to letters regarding the enforced sale. As I say, if we adopt this, it will be taken on a case-by-case basis, but hopefully it will improve the situation in terms of empty properties, empty businesses, and more particularly vacant and problematic land, because let's be honest, we've seen some problematic land areas too in the past. So there are recommendations on the 1 to 5. Before I say any more, I think Liz got her hand up, so I'll let her come in before I lose my voice.
Thank you, Leader. I think the point that you were saying about this fits in with our empty homes policy, but this is for the very difficult to solve cases where we're not managing it through other means. I had some figures given to me last week in terms of the number of empty private properties in the Vale brought back into use in 2021. And before saying it publicly, I'd want to double check it. But it's, you know, it is looking very impressive over what we've done, what we've achieved in the past. So, you know, it's to say that we need to have this extra piece of policy in our armoury so that we can really tackle some of these properties that are blighting neighbourhoods across the Vale. And the team are doing a super job on that, but they do need this little bit of extra impetus behind them so that they can tackle those as well. So I'd be delighted to second the recommendations.
Okay, Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This is one of those issues you think isn't much of a problem. Well, if you look at some of the high streets, then you've got properties that are abandoned and such, so that there's an area that you need to look at. And you've also got properties, dwellings around the Vale that could be brought into use. And you know, we have lots of talks on planning, why we're having extra developments, and yet we've got these empty properties. And I know there are some figures behind that. Attending a recent planning conference, the Inspector for Wales was quite clear on that this is a mechanism that local authorities can use and should use to bring back these properties into use. I will note in the report that the people that it affects most will be the planning and the legal services departments. So let's be frank now. This is not one of those that are quick wins. It's a bit of more work for some more people, already busy. But recognising that it's something that we need to do as an authority, so that we don't end up with abandoned high streets. And you know, we've got an instance where a property's been left empty, and the neighbours are frustrated because of, you know, gardens overgrown and refuse and all that sort of thing, and damage to property. So I'm in full support of this report. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. And I've just been told something like 10.54% of empty properties in the Vale brought back to use in 2020, 2021. So that's pretty good, particularly during the pandemic. But clearly what it is it was a case of if something is that bad, then they can be sold at auction, and any costs incurred by us in doing so could be recouped, but then kept in an account for the property owner until they come and collect it, basically. Okay, recommendations. That the Cabinet notes the details of the proposed enforced sale policy and the quality impact assessment. At the head of regeneration planning, I would argue, delegated authority to agree the final format of and any necessary typographical changes and minor amendments to the enforced sale policy prior to its publication, and thereafter update it with any factual updates in response to the policy or legislative changes as appropriate. So those we will give delegated authority, I think needs to be put in there. That the authority be granted to the relevant head of service linked to the initial local land charge in connection with the head of finance section 151 officer and the appropriate cabinet members to approve the use of the enforced sale procedure and the appropriate method of sale. 4, that the authority be granted to the monitoring officer, head of legal democratic services, to prepare, execute and complete all legal documentation required to use the enforcement sale procedure and to facilitate the appropriate method of sale. And finally, that the matter be referred to corporate performance and resources and homes and safe communities for their consideration, and should no comments or objections be received, or in fact that they agree the policy, Cabinet would consider the enforced sale policy and equality impact as agreed. So we will send it to them. If they have no comments, they will come back to us. If they don't, then that would stand as an agreement of Cabinet's recommendations. So can I formally move?
And formally second.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Over to somebody else now. Now we have a recommendation on Longmeadow Court Sheltered Housing Scheme External Refurbishment Project 21-22, but this is a Part 1 report. Margaret, I think you're taking this one. You're on mute. You're on mute.
This is a Part 1, but there is Part 2 later on in the report. The Part 2 report associated with this report brings to the attention of Cabinet an outcome of the tender process and request for delegated authority to accept the most advanced outrageous tender bid. And there is only one recommendation in this part of the report, and that the Cabinet notes the content of this report with a view to taking decisions on the award of the contract details within Part 2. Report later on in this issue of our Cabinet today, so I'm hoping everybody agrees.
No, that's fine. We'll note the fact that it's a Part 1 report. The details of any tender processes will be under Part 2 later in the agenda. Okay, thank you. And I think it's a similar situation in the next one, which is 7 Avenue External Environmental Refurbishment Scheme 21-22, and again similar recommendations, I think.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Yeah, it's for us to look at the contract and move forward. Exactly. Committee, I hope, will recommend the Cabinet notes the contents of the report. It's exactly the same. It's in the Part 2, and all the details will be in the Cabinet Part 2. Okay,
and the decision will be made there. Okay, in that case, a second that I move on. The next item is the Active Travel Network statutory consultation process. This is Peter, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport. Over to you.
Yes, thanks, Chair, Leader and colleagues. This is a bit of a tongue twister, so I shall make my best efforts now. The Active Travel Wales Act 2013 places duties upon local authorities in Wales to map, plan for, improve and promote opportunities for active travel. The initial active travel network maps were approved by Welsh Government in November 2017, and updated active travel network maps must be submitted to Welsh Government every 3 years. Sustrans Cymru Limited have assisted council officers with the undertaking of the active travel route auditing and production of future routes as identified in the report attached at Appendix A. This report seeks approval for the statutory 12-week consultation on the proposed active travel network maps. So I press on to the recommendations, and I'm asking that Cabinet endorses the Vale of Glamorgan active travel network maps consultation report as attached at Appendix A, that Cabinet approves the formal statutory 12-week consultation on the draft active travel network maps, including the Vale of Glamorgan active travel network map consultation report from the 2nd of August 2021, that the Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee is consulted on the active travel network maps as part of the formal 12-week consultation in September 2021, and that a further report is presented in autumn 2021 outlining the results of the consultation process and to consider the submission of the final active travel network maps to Welsh Government by the 31st of December 2021. Whew.
Fair enough. Okay, in some respects, a bit of a housekeeping report, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so the recommendations are on. You just read out, I think.
Yeah, you're very welcome to have a go yourself, Leader.
No, okay, you're right then. So we want the recommendations on 1 to 4 of the active travel network maps, couldn't it? 80 NMs. So we agree the recommendations that are before you. Yes, for a 12-week consultation period. Okay, and somebody just asked me whether or not we did formally agree items 13 and 14. They were both part 1 reports, one for Longmeadow Court, one for Severn Avenue. I think we did. If not, can I just confirm that everybody's happy that we agreed those, because they're simply footnoting and all the detail will come in part 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So as long as I didn't miss anything, I don't think I did. Okay, the next item. Sorry, I just moved something. See, I moved the wrong piece of paper.
Did Eddie have something on active travel then?
Sorry.
I did, but it didn't matter. Basically, I was just going to express, Neil, it is a consultation, and I'm fully aware that we will have some engagement from the Western Vale on the use of some active travel. It's down to how many lycra suits we see on the roads, isn't it? So I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. I'll say no more. It's a bit of a housekeeping report in that we have to go to consultation. It has all the details within it because it's a massive report. But it's there for 12 weeks and that starts the ball rolling. Right, in terms of any items that I have under part 1, no, sorry, there's another one. I've lost 17. That's what I was looking for. No, closure of independent report 16.
I'll take 16.
Yeah, go on it. I've just moved a bunch of papers all at once. Sorry. Go on, take 16, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes.
Tied together.
I'll bring this report to Cabinet regarding closure of independent residential care homes, because I think it's really important that I note the work that's been done to deal with these, the fact that these 2 care homes are closing, and also just to highlight some of the fragility in the market, as it were, with regards to care homes. So following concern raised regarding the quality of care provided at Island View, the proprietors took the decision to close the care home. By the end of June 2021, all residents have been found alternative care homes, and the home was formally closed. Separately, and for entirely different reasons, personal reasons of the owners, Tower Hill Care Home in Penarth also made a decision to close. But important to note that whilst they made that around the same time that Island View was going to close, they held off on any decision until the council had been able to process and support moving those residents from Island View to their appropriate new homes. I think the report's very detailed and talked about some of the background as to how the council gets involved and ultimately has the safeguarding responsibilities for all residents of care homes in the Vale, whether those are places which have been commissioned by their own families themselves, the council or the health board, but we have a role in overseeing that safeguarding and with Care Inspectorate Wales and understanding what needs to change and what comes out of those. Item section 2 of the report, I particularly want to highlight, and if I read through, actually, social workers were deployed to the home to Island View and ensured the residents were provided with as much choice as possible regarding their future placements. And all of the residents were moved between the 12th and the 29th of June. This took an incredible amount of planning and facilitating these residential moves. And during this time, we deployed the operational manager for residential care and compliance to check on the home daily. I've already mentioned that the Tower Hill Care Home had made a decision at a similar time for different reasons, but they held off on that closure to allow us to make those moves from Island View. And as I've stated, the closure of these two homes indicates the fragility of the care home sector, and also just underlines how much we rely on independent providers for the majority of care home beds for our residents. But it is positive. You know, we do have 4 of our own care homes who are able to draw upon that expertise, staffing, but also placements right across the Vale, Penarth, Barry, Cowbridge, which have given us an ability to respond and deal with these issues quickly. So I wanted to formally kind of recognise the hard work social workers have been doing to effect these moves. That the wishes of those residents who've been moved have been taken into account wherever we can, and actually where groups, it's been more supportive for groups to move, we've been able to facilitate that move as a group as well, and I'm reassured that things are well in hand with regards to Tower Hill as well with those moves. So if I just turn to the formal recommendations. Cabinet notes the closure of Island View Care Home and the associated reduction in residential care capacity in the Vale of 40 registered beds. The Cabinet notes the positive work completed by social services in reassessing all the residents and facilitating them to move to alternative provision. Cabinet notes that Tower Hill Care Home in Penarth has also made a decision to close. Cabinet endorses the approach taken by the Regional Commissioning Board, it's a subgroup of the Regional Partnership Board, to urgently review the stability of the care home sector, and that the report be referred to Health Living Social Care Scrutiny Committee for consideration. And certainly, I should say, as chair of the Regional Partnership Board, you know, we're looking at every aspect of how we can support people to you know, live well and age well, and part of what the care home sector can give us is some of that stability. But things are changing, and more people are getting residents, you know, getting support at home, domiciliary care. This is not simply that COVID has been the only factor, but I think the financial effects, and be it directly from COVID or from people's feelings about the care home setting because of COVID, but also because of the recruitment challenges and other things, you know, they've all played a part, and a full review will help us understand how those are dealt with more readily. And I'd also pay tribute to how closely in touch we are with our independent providers, and as a council we have a very positive relationship with our private care providers, with regular liaisons between both senior managers and officers in the social service department, but also on an operational basis between social workers and those needing those placements. So it would be bizarre not to note what has happened, and obviously I sincerely hope that the market, as it were, you know, the ability of beds and those providers stabilizes, and that people who rely on that care and support, those are still there. But it, you know, going into the summer with potential drop off in some of the support that's being provided by Welsh Government to help support care homes, it's inevitable that we may need to look closely at this again. But I'm certainly reassured, and I hope Cabinet are as well, of the hard work and professionalism demonstrated by the social workers in these cases to be able to provide that smooth transition and as much support as possible to these residents. So I formally move those recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I think I echo the sentiments, and perhaps we could add, just thinking about this now, add a 2A and 2B. So to 2 is to formally thank the staff for the amount of work they've done in ensuring the service continued seamlessly, because it was a tremendous amount of work. So we should formally thank the staff for the amount of work they did. And perhaps, and after 3, we should thank the Tower Hill proprietor for the partnership work they carried out in the past, and albeit we're sad to see them go, we wish them best for the future. Because
very happy to accept those amendments, and yeah, we'll make sure that those messages are shared on behalf of Cabinet. I think that's really important. Thank you.
I think it's important too. And as I said, without the independent sector, then we really do have our work cut out, and they do a tremendous job. And it's sorry to see one close, but that sometimes happens, doesn't it? Okay, thank you. Is everybody happy with that? We agree? Good, thank you. Next item, sorry, I shuffled my papers and I've got them all mixed up. Item 17 is the leisure management contract extension. Catherine, as a member for Leisure, Arts and Culture, would you like to come forward, please?
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm sorry if I keep looking away. It's because both of my children are at home. I don't know what they're doing. They're kind of in and out all the time, so I do apologise. I am here and listening. Yeah, so this is our the conversation we had previously in relation to the extension of the leisure contract. This is actually a part 2 report, but from this point of view right now, we've got 2 recommendations there, but the main one being we're going to use the urgent decision procedure over this. So obviously we can discuss this further in part 2.
Okay, so this is a part 1 report. To note the report thus far.
Yeah.
Report back in from our previous correspondent of our previous reports and the use 14 to move forward quickly. Good.
Yes,
that's
please.
Not a problem. I'll second that. Has everybody agreed? Yes. Okay. Now I've unshuffled my papers. Any items which I've decided urgent? I do have 3. The first one is a review of members' development strategy, which is a reference from the Democratic Services Committee on the 12th of July. It relates to the Democratic Services Committee look at issues in relation to members training and all that sort of stuff and inductions and stuff. But this was a committee, they wanted to refresh the elected members' development strategy, which is currently at Appendix A to the report. We've had a strategy for a number of years. We put it in place in 2016. It was due to refresh, but due to the pandemic, it hasn't done. Refresh also includes views of the WLGA on its comments relating to strategy and to make sure that it's comprehensive, covers most areas of need. Particularly strong on making sure training is driven by members and the members' needs, and more depth in many seen. Catherine, can you hold on 1 second, please, guys? Somebody knocking on my door. Problem.
Yes.
My apologies. The problem of working from home and somebody want to deliver something. Right. Sorry, I asked Catherine because I know Catherine was there. So basically, there were a couple of themes that they wanted to continue: the commitment to support development for all elected members, which is ongoing. The process for identifying local and national, collective and individual development needs, again, and the provision for personal reviews process. So the refresh strategy also includes updates informing relating to essential, mandatory and desirable, which is non-mandatory or voluntary training that covers lots of areas. The revised strategy also is now linked to the recently updated WLGA competency framework. In addition to the revised members' role description, see, working from home is never good, is it? And also there's been issues in relation to the Local Government Election Wales Act 2021. But there's also other things that have come in place since, because we've had the All Wales Learning Academy. And basically what they did was they resolved that the topics contained within the table at Appendix B, which is the new strategy, being reported and endorsed with an amendment, the rules of debate training be included as mandatory training. Basically, they came up with a list and it's in B, but what they wanted was extra training in terms of rules of debate. That the development of a personal safety policy specifically for elected members be presented to the committee and therefore cabinet for consideration adoption in due course. That the inclusion of the WLGA competency framework, which is also at Appendix C to the report, and the revised model of role description for members are set out in Appendix D to the report as part of the refreshed Council's members development strategy be endorsed. Obviously, it's coming to us on the basis that Democratic Services met last week. They met on the 12th of July. they wish this to go forward so that it can be advanced during the summer and as soon as possible, so it's ready in time for the May 2022 elections. So I'm gonna move that we agree their recommendations as set out, but also that we also use section 1414 of the Constitution in order to use the urgency procedure, so that it allows democratic services to work with the Democratic Services Committee through the summer and afterwards in order to develop this plan for May 2022. Sorry about the interruptions, and I hope that makes sense. And I know Catherine was there, so Catherine, do you want to come in, please?
That'd be great. Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to second the recommendations here. I'm also really happy to know that we are, as I said previously, doing everything we can to encourage more and more people to be involved in local governance. The conversation around the rules of debate originally were possibly not going to be mandatory, but in reality, if you're talking about someone who's never been in a council chamber before, who's never read council paperwork, having those rules of debate right from the get-go is really important for them to understand and to be able to be included in the process. So there were lots of comments made by other members as well, but realistically, just stay there a minute, just stay there. Realistically, it means that we're doing everything we can to support all of our new elected members, wherever they've come from and whoever they represent, to make sure they've got all the information they need to be able to fully participate in our council. Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. As I said, the joys of working from home. And this actually links in with the Diversity and Democracy report, which we dealt with earlier. So it's a linchpin, all of it. This makes sure, because what we did last time was we did have a strategy for training the members, and I think it was really, really good. We clearly needed a refresh because we've had lots of new legislation in since then too. Yeah. So
and having done the training myself, yes, I can absolutely vouch for how good it was the last time, and can see how it could be better the next time. You know.
It's okay. All right. This part of the report, I'd be happy to. Eddie, do you want to come in? And then Ben. Sorry,
Ben was first. Neil, so you go ahead, Ben.
And Ben.
Oh, see, ever the gentleman, Eddie. See, I will jump in ahead of you then. Yeah, I echo what you're saying. I think we need to see this in the same breath as increasing diversity, because you could be the most engaged with the election process and feel those barriers are done with, and then you get to the council and suddenly everyone's speaking another language. It's not English or a foreign language. It's just its own language and its own a set of acronyms, and having that confidence, not necessarily to know all the answers from the training, but having the confidence as to who you can turn to get those and how to develop as a councillor. And in myself and Catherine, you've got two first-term councillors in the cabinet here helping, lapping up all those training opportunities. I wanted to make the point, and no doubt that there will be different members who come to this, and I know from understanding what the debate was at Democratic Services Committee, there'll be those members who are long standing on the council who potentially might resent the mandatory element of training for stuff that they feel they already know. And I understand that, and I want to echo that here, because I think however we go about this training, if it's felt to be an imposed, hi everyone, you don't know anything, let me bring you through this, then I don't know how involving it will be, and I think it will turn some members off. But I think the sense I get from what the WLGA is trying to do, and also what the aims were here, is actually it's about using some of that expertise and bringing everyone along. And so it's not about lecturing everyone from base point, but actually about understanding what different people can bring to it. And I think we shouldn't lose that nuance when we go forward with this and start listing off subjects as mandatory. Because I think everybody's acceptance of those or knowledge of those will be different, and people may well have extensive experience from private industry, from other parts of the public sector, but they just don't have the filter of local government speak to be able to feel they've got the confidence in those areas, and actually the training may just unlock that for them. And so not everyone, even new members, needs to start from scratch. So I'll be really interested to see how this develops. I'll be interested to see how we can share this with prospective candidates so that they understand that there's something in place for them, and so very happy to support it. But I think we do always need to be mindful we're dealing with, when we talk about diversity, we're also talking about a diverse group of politicians who potentially come with a lot of experience, and maybe how they interact with training needs to be carefully handled as we move forwards. I just want to note that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Eddie.
Well, Ben's articulated quite a bit of that, which is, and has Catherine. The other aspect is, yeah, it's that recognition that the council do train people, and there's a considerable amount of training available, and to bring that to people who prospective candidates, lets them know that they don't just come in and just be expected to know everything on hoof. And also a recognition that there is a list of those managed training, and you can't do them all in one day. And certainly that needs to be spread out over, and as we've done previously, some weeks. But yeah, so just that's all I need to add.
Good, thank you. Because it's also important, there's new legislation comes in, so we need the training as and when that happens too. But it is important that this is not just for new members, it's for returning members too. Because whether you like it or not, sometimes you have something in your head and then you go to a training session, oh, I got it wrong. No matter how long you've been here, because sometimes there are sometimes subtle changes which you may have missed. Let's put it that way. So basically, the recommendations of that committee using the 1414 urgency procedures to move forward. Yes, everybody agreed? Good. The second item is again another reference from the same committee of the same date, and this is following on from that, and this is really a draft members induction and development programme. And again, it sets out the proposed induction and development programme for the newly elected and again returning councillors following elections in May, and that's set out in Appendix A, and that was for consideration. They took a comprehensive induction. We did take a comprehensive induction and development programme in 2017, and we need to do the same for 2022. The draft development strategy is intended to amend the programme to require attendance of rules of debate, which is what we just talked about. It's also requested that the Wales GLAM and ethnic minority networks be approached to assist in the delivery of equality and diversity sessions, and I hope they would. And I know that we, to SLT, to the see, we go into these terms earlier. Like, for example, you talk about WLGA, Welsh Local Government Association, but people automatically think it, and SLT, the senior leadership team. So in the senior leadership team recently, we had a presentation from one of our GLAM members, which was absolutely excellent, I have to tell you. And one of the things we did say after that is that should be given to all members too, and I think that's important to do. It also, and I know that there's a person here who pushed this one, is that sort of things like times of the session should be considered. So don't turn at 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30, because if people got care and responsibilities, children in school or whatever, and I'm sure Catherine's going to come in and talk about it. They wanted handouts to be provided, and obviously there was an issue of some people felt they were new and they didn't know enough officers, either senior management level or other, and they should have sessions where you meet those individuals. And there was also an issue in terms of where the surface area, the Vale list of contact details in the service areas, as well as senior management be provided. But in essence, to be honest, a lot of that is already there, because if you're a member, you can go on StaffNet and you can find people's names. You'll check their name. You can check their email address. You can check their telephone number. In many cases, a mobile number. But it also has a map review. So things are there, and I think maybe that's one of the issues as well, is people have to be told where they are, because you can't assume that everyone knows where they are. And there's also questioning attention of members' roles in respect of outside bodies and governing bodies, for example, and what they're required of them for that. So they resolved that the draft member induction and development programme attached to the Appendix A to the report be endorsed and referred to us Cabinet for consideration and approval, with the following suggested additions. 1, the rules of debate training be included in the draft induction programme, as we talked about earlier. The Vale Glamorgan's Council GLAM and Ethnic Minority Network be approached with a view to assisting on the diversity of equality and diversity sessions. There's also a session which we're trying to bring up in terms of anti-racist issues, or hopefully there aren't any, but within our black and ethnic minority offices, to set a network up too, and that's being formulated at the moment, and maybe that should be considered within this recommendation, and to see whether or not we can get people to come and discuss it with our councillors ourselves. Even it's never too late. That the interest of inclusivity and diversity, the training sessions be noted as been amended to possibly 9:30 or other times to assist members with childcare responsibilities. Members' appointments to governing bodies and outside bodies, so they say further consideration be given to making inductions sessions, so that there's in terms of what's their responsibility, interactive opportunities, time for members to network with each other, time for presentations and handouts to be provided to members, opportunities to afford members to meet with other officers throughout all the ranks. I think it is fair, and I think the other thing that Democratic Services are talking about is possibly giving actually induction programs to the potential candidates before the election, so not actually waiting until somebody's elected, but actually looking to see whether or not we could give some training and information to those who may consider standing as a councillor. Whether they're elected or not is up to the electorate. But again, it's something which we could be included in this. I haven't got a problem with this at all. Catherine wants to come in, but again, we would use the section 1414 urgency provision in order for it to be developed during the summer and into the autumn, ready for the May elections. Catherine.
Again, happy to second that, Leader. Thank you so much. It does make a huge difference, and I think that at this moment in time, when we've all had to adapt to a different way of working, then it feels exactly the right time. It could have been the right time a long time ago, but at least we're doing it now. That you've got the ability to have the hybrid meetings. So maybe people who wouldn't have ever come before, or for example, if I had been a single parent, there is no way I'd have been able to attend scrutiny meetings at 6 o'clock 3 times a week. That just wouldn't have been viable for me to do, whereas now we actually can. So in looking at changing times thing, that's going to make a huge difference to some people, because they will at least be able to get childcare, because that was another issue, because childcare in the evening on the whole doesn't exist as a formal provision. Childcare is between sort of like 9 and 6. So if you were looking to do things in the evening, there's an assumption you're going to get magic childcare from nowhere. So again, I would really I really support this report, and thanks for that. And thanks to Democratic Services for pulling it together to be able to include more people in our council.
Good. Okay. Fair enough. Fair point. I know that one of the things that we've always thought of as a council is that we're really meeting councillor, because there are people who are councillors and have other work too. But we have to be a bit more flexible. And in fact, I think during the course of this year, we have like things like planning at 4 o'clock and other things during the day. And there's always something during the day anyway. But okay, everybody happy with that recommendation for it to go forward? Okay, the third one I have is in relation to the whistleblowing policy. And this is a report that's been trying to be put together for a while, and really we want to do it so that we can make it effective from the 1st of September. So again, I'm going to use the 1414 Article 1414, or sorry, Section 1414 of the urgency procedures. And this is basically to provide members with the awareness and update of the revised whistleblowing policy and associated procedure, and seek approval for its implementation. So the report is a high-level overview of the implementation of a revised whistleblowing policy, and seeks recommendations for implementation of the policy with effect, as I said, from the 1st of September. The report also provides an update on the associated revised whistleblowing procedure and no speak out line, which will become effective from the 1st of September 2021 too, hence the reason we want the urgency procedure. Whistleblowing, as people will know, is a term when workers pass on information concerning wrongdoing. Whistleblowing covers the law where a worker who makes a disclosure must have reasonable in 2 things. One is that the first is that they're acting in a public interest. This means that it isn't the same as a grievance procedure or complaints procedure. And the second thing is that the worker must reasonably believe that the disclosure tends to show past, present, or likely future wrongdoings falling into one or more of the following categories, and I will refer some of them: criminal offences, failure to comply with the obligations set out in law, miscarriages of justice, endangering someone's health and safety, danger to the environment, covering up wrongdoings in the above categories. But it's clear that the policy and the procedure has to be accessible, provides a structure and supportive framework for all our employees and contractors, I may add, to speak out or blow the whistle, as it's called. So a dedicated whistleblowing speak out or blowing the whistle on all incidents has a positive impact on the organisation, we hope. But it also protects and finances and maintains a high reputation of the value of the Vale Glamorgan. And hopefully it improves the services we provide. We currently do have a whistleblowing policy, but it was last updated in 2014. The audit process has identified the current methods of reporting are not clear and need to be streamlined. So the new policy, which is appended at Appendix 1, provides clarity on what constitutes whistleblowing disclosure, the ways in which whistleblowing allegations can be reported, and provides a dedicated speak out line to be launched in September. As I said, the line will provide all employees and contractors with a clear pathway to raise whistleblowing concerns, and Appendices 2 and 3 attached to the report outline those procedures to be followed when the dedicated phone line is used, which is Appendix 2, or indeed the email communication is used, and that's covered in Appendix 3. It is important that the reviewing of our policy has been done in collaboration with our trade union colleagues as an integral part of the culture and value of the Vale. It is integral of our core values of our corporate plan. It will be launched, if we agree it today, via our internal comms processes and in collaboration with our trade union colleagues. And again, diversity networks, so again, coming back to diversity too, to encourage its accessibility to all employees and contractors, and will be supported by a training package available via in-house software IDEF. I thought I'd spell it out because people don't always know what whistleblowing means, but I think what's important is there's going to be ways of doing it by telephone, by email, and there's a procedure that's set out. So the recommendations are that the Cabinet considers and notes the contents of the report as we've done, and Appendixes 1, 2 and 3, that the Cabinet approves the policy and associated revised procedure to be implemented across the Council with effect from the 1st of September 2021 to coincide with the launch of the new Council Speak Out line. And finally, the Cabinet approves the use of the urgent procedure as set out in section 1414 of the Council Constitution in order for it to take effect from the 1st of September. I don't know if everybody's got any comments, but one of the things is it is important that we have it. It is important that we work together, and it's also very important that we work with our trade union colleagues. And I'm really pleased that that's happened. And I know there's been a lot of work done on this, and that's why it was coming a couple of weeks ago, and it wasn't quite ready. But I think it's right that we do it now, even if we use the 1414. Any comments, or does everybody agree or not agree?
I'm happy to second, Leader.
Everybody agreed? Yes? Good. Thank you very much. In that case, any items that I have which are urgent, I have no more. However, we do have items for discussion under part 2 of the agenda, which follow on from the earlier reports on today's agenda. These are matters that I consider to be confidential for a particular reason. Therefore, we need to move into private session where confidential matters can be discussed under part 2. Therefore, I will ask for Cabinet to agree part 2, and I'll ask the Cabinet Officer to stop the recording of this open session to ensure that no members of the public are present after this juncture, and only allow the relevant parties to remain to hear the detail of the items to be discussed, and that following the meeting, the outcome of the part 2 discussions will be formally captured as part of the minutes of the meeting, advising all parties of the final decision of the Cabinet for this item. So can I formally move part 2? Can I have somebody second, please?
I'll formally second.
Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. In that case, can I ask that that those members who were not members of the council leave the meeting, please, and ensure that's the case.